So in Buddhism, there is a specific word for the practice of a meditation, and that's called KAMMATTHANA. KAMMATTHANA means, Kamma means action, Thana means a foundation. So, but here again the action is related to the mental action, not about the physical action. Now when we are working with our mind, then basically working towards the understanding of this mind, and the purpose of understanding of this mind is to recognize that whenever mind becomes restless, you're aware of that. Whenever mind is distracted, you're aware of that. And further on, it is not just a recognition of this distracted mind and restless mind and lost into the thought, but also ability to recognize that whatever thought I am having, whatever distractions that are coming, whether that is beneficial or not, whether that is wholesome or unwholesome. So we have to recognize that too. So ability to distill that this is beneficial and it is harmful, it causes a trouble for my well-being, a physical and mental well-being, and that will affect to my own lifestyle, also that will affect to whoever living around with me. And understanding that ability to choose. So the first one is being able to aware of what's happening. And the second is to ability to choose. Choose between this right and a wrong, good and a bad, skillful or unskillful, beneficial or unbeneficial. And this choosing actually defines whether you want to be happy or unhappy, whether that will lead to the happiness or unhappiness. And this choosing, again, is a form of our right understanding or wrong understanding. If we have a proper understanding of these thoughts that we are aware of, then we will be able to choose the right one. It's like when we are going somewhere and you've never been there before, and you saw a junction, there are two paths to go. Then you have to decide which one you have to go. And if you don't have any knowledge about these two paths, then you will be making a decision without understanding it, and the outcome may be disastrous. So there is no go anymore, and then maybe dangerous. So like that. But whereas if we have a full understanding of that, then we can make a right decision. Okay? And that making a right decision, in fact, leading towards a comfortable, our own comfortable lifestyle, and also we feel comfortable and we don't need to worry about what's going to happen. And what is the outcome from it. So that's why the practice of a meditation, although it seems simple and seems basics, but more we practice, gradually we will be able to recognize these things. And that is called the KAMMATTHANA, or the meditation. And the practice of a meditation, that's why we are developing this meditation on the basis of something. So that's the foundation. So we have to have a foundation. And this foundation simply because our mind arises only with the objects. Only with the object. If there is no objects, there will be no mind. You may think of anything, So that anything thinking is actually is arising of one mind, one element of the mind. Right? So that's why we are intentionally giving an object to work with it, so that our mind will not pick up things that is harmful, or that is later on becomes an addiction. It could be any addiction, doesn't matter what. It could be simple coffee addiction, or a game, or drugs, or social media, or even addiction to the meditation as well. Okay, so that is also could happen. So in order to prevent from falling into that track, what we are doing is having a neutral object to work with. So neutral object. So, and a neutral object, basic form is given are contemplating on the body, so our physical body, and in our feelings, and then in our minds, mental activities, and also how these functions. It's called a phenomena. So I'll be paying attention to the phenomena. Now the purpose of paying attention to these four foundations actually again simply for the development of our mind. Development of our mind towards the wholesome mind. Towards the wholesome mind. So that's why the practice of a Buddhist meditation is basically to cultivate the wholesome things to make the mind into the wholesome state. Kusalassa chittassa ekakata, what I say. So mind is in a wholesome state. And when the mind is in a wholesome state, and basically what we are doing is any unwholesome things that may arise, we recognize that and then reducing it or removing it. And then whatever good things and beneficial things and helpful, whenever these things arises, then we maintain it, not only maintaining, making it more. So when we make it more, then what happens? We will be always mindful of any action that we are doing, whether we are doing it physically, whether we are speaking, whether we are thinking. And as we develop our practice, what happens that gradually the physical action becomes less important, and then we spend a lot of time on the feelings and emotions. How do we feel? How am I feeling? And what are the emotions? And how these emotions are affecting? And what makes me happy? What makes me unhappy? What makes me sad? So these things we will spend a lot of time, because that is the experiences that we are always living with, and our life is shaped by those feelings and emotions. That's why we are very quick to be happy if we get what we want, and in the meantime we are very quick to be unhappy if we can't get it. And that's why we always say it's not fair. It's not fair, like that. And so this happens, and we spend a lot of time in that practice. And when we are spending time on it, quite often we're practicing. What happens that we recognize it, but unable to understand the true nature of that, and then feel like before I meditate, I was happier than when I'm meditating. Because when you didn't meditate, or you never learn how to meditate, what happens that these thoughts and these feelings comes and this past, or sometimes it remains with you for a long time, but you didn't recognize it. You are not aware of that. It is causing a lot of harm. You may not be able to eat, you may not be able to sleep, you may not be able to communicate with other people, you may not want to go out and see other people, and then feeling like a depressed and stressed and anxious in that way. You're going through with it, but you're not aware of it. And you feel like you're happy. But whenever you practice meditation and began to recognize these feelings and these emotions, and you feel like, I am always having this. And I can recognize all the time. And why I am having this? I don't want it. Yeah? So there is the reality that you are experiencing, and there is a concept that I don't want it. So here, rather than understanding that feeling, that emotions, what we are doing is we try to replace with something else. And that something, we do not know what is that something of. We do not know what that something is. And that's the trouble. And actually there will be no something. Because whenever we try to replace with something, and that something that we have replaced, that won't last long. That won't give you happiness all the time. That's why you have to buy a lot of toys. And you play with it for some time, and you feel bored, and then replace it with another one, and then you play with this for some time, and then replace it again. So you're never satisfied with it. Always needing something. Same in our life as well. In order to have a happiness, we get something, and we want to replace with something, and as soon as you replace it and you play with sometimes again, oh, this is not what I want anymore. So similar way, we try to replace these stress, anxiety, depression, whatever you name it, all these emotional and mental states, by something. And that's something that you do not know what is that. And whatever you can grab, you take it and replace with that. And since you do not know the reality of it, and then you're replacing with that, again, that also continues the same pattern again and again. But whereas when you are practicing meditation, what's happening here, that we are not trying to replace with it. We are not trying to replace to something from something. But we are trying to learn that what is this feeling, what is this emotions, and how it is affecting to me. What is the cause of the arising of these feelings? And then whenever I'm having these feelings, how it is affecting to my well-being, my thoughts, my life, my understanding, my thinking. So ability to think and then recognize that. When we able to recognize it properly, what happens that we will not take that thought or that emotion, that feelings as mine. Okay? There is no expression of this is mine, this is me. Okay? So there is no projection of selfness, self. Okay? That this is me, this is mine. And when we don't have that concept of the self onto those feelings, then we don't have to replace anything. Right? We don't have to think of that anymore. We are not trying to replace with something either. We're simply working with that one. And then with that, what we are doing is we are understanding that the cause of these feelings and emotions are basically these are the things coming through, experiencing that what we are experiencing, and then we're able to stop there. And the moment when we realize properly, understand it properly, and that moment actually those feelings drops, your mind simply becomes very alert and awake, and your mind becomes very luminous, stable, and then the mind also becomes very quiet. There is less desires, less anxious, less stress. And then in this case, what happens is that you began to recognize your mental state, each and every mindset, mind moments that is happening. Even just like a thinking of something, even a think of the word that you are thinking, or formation of the word, or formation of any actions. So you will be able to recognize that. Okay, and that recognition eventually helps us to understand the whole process of how this forms and how this fades away. Okay, and so with this, eventually, then we get the more further development in the practice of a meditation. Right? So I offer this as a reflection for tonight, and with this, let's practice meditation. So sitting in a comfortable position, relax yourself. Bring your attention to the moment here and now, aware of your sitting body. So sitting in an upright position, gently close your eyes and simply aware of your sitting body. And making sure that you're relaxed. You may imagine that you are sitting in front of the mirror and looking at your sitting body. How do you want to see yourself? Clumsy, or sitting in a comfortable, upright position? And observing your sitting body from top to bottom. And if you feel something tense or uncomfortable, you may change to find a comfortable position. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Just to be aware as you're sitting here and now. Leave all your responsibilities aside. Just bring your mind here and now, observing your sitting body. Feeling, sensing as you're sitting here. And as you're observing this physical body as it is sitting, try to notice whatever sensations are there. So here we are not imagining, but a feeling. Feeling this body, not by thinking. Sometimes it is also known as knowing your body from your heart rather than from your brain. And when you feel yourself, try to notice what is making you to feel that in that particular place. And in order to feel that, are you trying yourself, or is just a natural feeling that happens and you're attending yourself there? When you're attending yourself to observe that feeling, oftentimes you may feel like you are doing it. You're making it to happen. So making sure that you are not functioning it by yourself, not holding or not generating or interfering with it. You're simply sitting at the bank of the river watching the river flow. All what you're doing is sitting calmly, quietly, but observing, this is what I'm feeling. There is no thinking, but just aware of that feeling. And if your mind is already calmed and collected, and your awareness is sharp, try to recognize whenever you feel that, what sort of a perception comes in to play. What's the mental state comes to play with it? Otherwise, you can spend your time just observing the sensation that you are observing and spend time on it. And spending time settling down, grounding yourself simply by observing that sensation. And resting there. Whenever any other things comes to distract you at that time, you may realize that. So-called observing, acknowledging, noting, and let go and back to that sensation that you are feeling in that particular place. But for those who've been practicing and mindfulness is strong enough, then try to recognize when you are recognizing those feelings. Try to recognize that what sort of a perception that you are having onto that feeling and how this mind is engaging in it, proliferating and delineating. So with this in mind, continue practicing until you hear the gong.